single spring window opener. Before you begin assembly and installation of your single spring window opener, be sure to read the preamble pages and the stop page included in your manual. Your single spring window opener is a temperature controlled component. It is designed to automatically open and close with changes in temperature. This helpful hints video, in addition to your instruction manual, will offer you a detailed look at assembly, installation, and troubleshooting for this component. The first step to assembling the single spring window opener is completing an inventory of all parts included with the component. If you find any part that is damaged or missing, please contact us before continuing your assembly. Before you can start the assembly of the single spring window opener, you need to make sure the black cylinder is in the closed position. This is an example of a cylinder in the open position and one in the closed position. You will notice in the open position, the piston rod is much longer than when it is in the closed position. In order to correctly assemble this component without damaging it, it is critical that the cylinder be in the closed position. To get your cylinder in the closed position, place it in the refrigerator or freezer for at least 5 minutes. You will know it is in the closed position when it looks like this. Next, measure the length of the cylinder piston rod. It should measure 1.5 inches above the cylinder threads. If the piston rod is measuring much longer than 1.5 inches, put it back in the refrigerator or freezer for another 5 minutes, and then remeasure. If it measures slightly above 1.5 inches, hold the black cylinder with the piston rod facing a hard, flat surface and gently push down. As long as the cylinder is cold and in the closed position to start with, it should retract slightly. Never do this with a cylinder in the open position. It will damage the component and it will become unusable. Lay out all parts of your single spring window opener on a flat, solid, and raised surface. Insert the cylinder rod into the cylinder housing, then screw in the cylinder until the threads appear to be equal on each side of the housing, like this. Take care not to screw the cylinder in too far, like this, or not far enough, like this, as it can affect both the assembly and the performance of the window opener. During this part of the assembly, do not try to insert the cylinder rod into the push rod. The cylinder needs to be screwed into the cylinder housing before it enters the push rod. When screwing in the cylinder, if you feel any resistance at all, stop. Do not continue to screw in the cylinder. Unscrew the cylinder threads all the way, remove the cylinder from the housing, and then start again. If you continue to feel resistance, please contact us. Once you have the cylinder positioned halfway into the housing, make sure the hole in the cylinder rod is facing side to side. If it is not, turn the cylinder slightly until it is in the correct position. Then, use a marker and make a vertical line on both the housing and on the cylinder threads, like this. This mark will serve as a reference point for you when you adjust the opening and closing temperature. More on that later. Next, while holding the cylinder in one hand, use the other hand to lift arm B up slightly so that the push rod aligns with the cylinder rod. Slowly lower arm B so that the cylinder rod slides into the push rod. Make sure that the hole in the cylinder rod aligns with hole B, the second hole in the push rod, then insert the pin. It is important that the pin is inserted into the correct hole on the push rod. You do not want to insert the pin into hole A, like shown here, as it will not allow the component to fully open the vent once the component is installed. Installation. Before installing your single spring window opener, gently push up on the vent panel from inside your greenhouse to make sure it can open and close easily. If you find that the vent panel is sticking, here's what you can do. Holding the vent panel open, lightly sand any spots that may be sticking. Check that the vent panel has been installed correctly. The continuous hinge should be on the outside and towards the top of your greenhouse. Refer back to your instruction manual for proper installation. Check that the vent panel roof block is installed in the correct position. It should be flush to the top and bottom board and centered in the vent panel. Check the vent roof rafter. The angle on this part should be facing up, like this. The angle on this part is necessary to allow the vent panel to open and close easily. If the vent roof rafter is not in the correct position, refer back to your instruction manual on page 64. To attach the single spring window opener, center it on the vent roof panel on the inside of the assembly. It should align with the vent roof rafter. With the cylinder facing down, attach window brace A and B to the vent roof panel block, then attach the frame bracket to the bottom vent block. At no point during the installation of this component should you need to adjust the cylinder. Now that the single spring window opener is in place, here are a few things you need to know in order to use the component properly. Be advised, the following statements are true only if the component has been assembled and installed correctly. The opening temperature of this component can be set to open in temperatures between 16 and 25 degrees Celsius or 60 and 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Automatic ventilation will not occur in temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius or 122 degrees Fahrenheit. To increase the temperature at which the window opener will start to open, turn the black cylinder clockwise. One full turn of the cylinder increases the opening temperature by 0.5 degrees Celsius or 1 degree Fahrenheit. Use the mark on the cylinder housing and cylinder threads made during installation to help you determine when a full rotation of the cylinder has been completed. To decrease the temperature at which the window opener will start to open, turn the black cylinder counterclockwise. One full turn of the cylinder decreases the opening temperature by 0.5 degrees Celsius or 1 degree Fahrenheit. Use the mark on the cylinder housing and cylinder threads made during installation to help you determine when a full rotation of the cylinder has been completed. The opening temperature of a newly installed opener is 16 degrees Celsius, which is the minimum temperature needed for the component to open properly. Do not turn the cylinder counterclockwise unless you have already increased the opening temperature. Turning the cylinder counterclockwise on a newly installed opener may not allow it to open properly. As a reminder, this component is temperature sensitive. It is meant to open and close automatically with changes in temperature, and it should not be forced open or closed. Doing so will damage your component. With this in mind, there are a few things you should not do to your window opener once it is installed. Never manually push up or down on the vent panel with the window opener installed. This can cause damage not only to the window opener, but to the vent panel as well. Never force the cylinder rod to retract when it is in the open position. This is a pressurized component, and doing so will cause irreversible damage to the component. Never use the cylinder as a pry to open or close the vent panel. Pushing or pulling on the cylinder causes extra stress on the component, which can cause parts to break, become loose, disform, and ultimately cause loss of function in the component. Please refer back to the next section on how to properly open and close the vent panel with the component installed. Never remove the pin from the component when the cylinder is in the open position. This will cause the vent panel to slam shut and the piston rod to extend into the push rod. This can cause damage to both the vent panel and the window opener. Never remove the cylinder from the component when it is in the open position. The cylinder should always be in the closed position when being removed from the window opener. Troubleshooting. If you're finding that the single spring window opener is not performing at its best, here are a few things you can check. It is important to note that if you have a vent mesh installed on your greenhouse, it must be removed before you can access the window opener. Is the pin still inserted? Check to see if the cylinder pin is still inserted in your window opener. If it is missing, take a look around to see if you can find it. If you have the pin, before you can reinstall it, make sure the cylinder is in the closed position. Then align the cylinder rod with the push rod. Make sure the hole in the cylinder rod and the second hole in the push rod align. Then reinstall the cylinder pin. Is the outside temperature within the optimal operating temperatures for the component? Your window opener will only begin to work between 16 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit. If the component is not opening and the temperature is at least 16 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, check to make sure that the cylinder hasn't been screwed in too far into the cylinder housing, or that it hasn't been unscrewed out of the housing. If either of these situations have occurred, screw the cylinder so that there is equal amounts of thread on each side of the cylinder housing. If the mark that you made during installation is still present, line up the mark on the threads with the mark you made on the housing. That will reset your opener to start opening at 16 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Check your wood parts. Check that your vent roof panel can open and close easily. If you're finding that the roof panel is sticking, here's what you can do. Make sure that the cylinder is in the closed position. Remove the pin, then unscrew the cylinder from the window opener and remove it for now. Gently push up on the panel from inside of the greenhouse to determine what spots on the panel may be causing the issue. Lightly sand the spots that are sticking. Then make sure the vent can open and close easily. With the cylinder in the closed position, reinsert it into the cylinder housing, making sure it doesn't enter the push rod. Push up gently on the vent panel to help align the cylinder rod and push rod. Once aligned, insert the cylinder rod into the push rod and reinsert the pin into hole B. Do you need to open or close the vent panel quickly? There could come a time where you need to open or close the vent panel quickly, regardless of the outside temperatures. To open the vent panel quickly, place the cylinder in a bottle of warm, not hot water. This will trigger the cylinder to open the vent panel. To close the vent panel quickly, use a bottle of cold water and place it over the cylinder. This will trigger the cylinder to retract and close the vent panel. Winterizing maintenance. It is recommended that the cylinder be removed from the window opener once temperatures are consistently below 16 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have a vent mesh installed on your greenhouse, you will need to remove it before you can remove the cylinder. To remove the cylinder, make sure it is in the closed position, then remove the pin. Once the pin is removed, unscrew the threads from the cylinder housing and remove the cylinder. It is best to store in a dry place until temperatures improve. Replace the cylinder in your window opener when temperatures are consistently above 16 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. It is also suggested that you lubricate your component before reinstalling your cylinder each year. It is best to lubricate all moving parts as well as cylinder threads. Do not use a penetrating lubricant. Routine maintenance checks on your window opener are important. We recommend checking that the pin in your window opener is in place and snug. Check to make sure the spring is still in place and connected to both arm A and the push rod. If you have any questions or require any replacement parts, please contact us.